Well, hey everybody, and welcome to episode 38 of the Pixar Post Podcast. As usual, I'm TJ.
And I'm Julie.
And in this episode, we are going to actually, even though we have more of our Inside Out interviews to bring you from our trip to the Pixar studios, we're actually going to take a break from that because we had, John Lasseter had a speaking event this week at the Academy, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, also known as what handles the Oscars. Mm-hmm. And we actually we're lucky enough to have a good friend of the show's attend the event and recorded it. And so we actually are going to present some of that. So that's going to be the main focus of today's episode. And then I will pick back up with episode 39 in getting into, more of our continuation of the interviews that we had at the studios. So we're obviously excited to bring you that. And we're not going to dig into a lot of the fine details of the news, but just want to highlight, since we did our last episode, the amount of news that has hit is crazy.
Oh my gosh.
So it's been Disney Infinity 3.0
yes.
with the Inside Out playset, obviously based in Star Wars, but it's going to have the Inside Out playset of all 5 of the emotions.
Yes.
Really awesome, and I completely can't wait for that.
I know. Something that we kind of felt like was going to happen.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We found out that at D23, at the D23 Expo, there's going to be a Finding Dory sneak peek where they're going to show some clips, talk about characters, bring out some vocal cast.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Too bad we're not going.
Oh, I know.
But you know what? All of the news will still be brought to you on our website. We're going to be culling pictures and tweets and official press release details from Pixar as well. So even though we won't be present,
all the information coming to
the
you.
information will still be coming directly to you. So get ready for that. There was also a new plot synopsis for The Good Dinosaur. So, and Jim Morris, Pixar's general manager, actually did an interview recently, and actually I posted this in the forum. And he said that one of the big things that they had to change was, although it was funny with the plot, they said that it could be considered poking fun at some people. So that was one of the main reasons that they had to pull the plug on it.
Oh.
And I put that in the forum, like I mentioned, which if anybody is not a forum member and you aren't familiar with using forums, if you ever go to it as far as forum.pixarpost.com, or you can just go to pixarpost.com and click on the forum button, it can be overwhelming when you first look at a forum because it is more text heavy. But if you do go on there, if you're not familiar with it, definitely take a look and take a minute and break it all down.
But it's amazing what our forum community finds and what they post in the discussions.
It's the insights.
Constantly blown away by it.
It's the insights that really blow me away. So yeah, it's kind of broken down by, we have categories of like talking about feature films, shorts, gaming news outside, other just general community news. So if you haven't checked it out, be sure to do that. But I posted it on there because it was such a little snippet. It wasn't like, hey, let's post a whole post about it.
Right.
But then I had forgotten originally that they had talked about that Arlo's family was going to be farmers.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that from the beginning, I was like, I wasn't sold on it.
Right.
It just did, for some reason, something about it just didn't ring true to me, or didn't hit me the right way,
right?
Whatever. But anyway, somebody pointed out that they were Amish farmers, and I wonder if that was what it was tied to.
Yeah, I think the look and everything.
Yeah, it could be the look. It could be that there was potentially, because he said it was funny, like maybe they were making some jokes at the expense that they're shut out kind of from society from a electronics type standpoint. There could have been something there
like
that could be, funny for some jokes, like, Weird Al Yankovic songs, which are, kind of poke fun at some of that stuff. But I wonder if that's what it was. But I like the fact that, again, I posted it out there and said, I wonder what it could be. Immediately, 5 minutes later, somebody's like, it was probably the Amish thing.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love the speed and the ability to kind of have more of an open conversation.
Oh, within our forum community.
Yeah. So that was another thing that had came out, a little twist on the Good Dinosaur synopsis. Tons of Inside Out clips.
Oh my goodness.
TV spots. And another foreign trailer have come out.
Character profile videos.
Yeah.
Those are daily this week.
Right, yeah.
On
Disney,
two separate networks.
Right, so it's on Disney Channel and
Yahoo Movies.
Right, exactly. So definitely, if you haven't seen any of those, we've got them all listed there. And then there's a post that you're kind of working up right now that I just want to talk about, which, obviously more details will be in the post. But it's about Michael Giacchino and his summer of blockbusters and films.
I know. He is at it again. I mean, 6 years ago, he had, 3 films come out within a 4-week span.
Right.
Now, this year, he has that again, 3 films together within a 4-week span.
Right.
Tomorrowland, Inside Out, Jurassic World.
Right.
I mean, this guy, he's in demand, obviously, but holy moly, he has been one busy composer.
So what always blows my mind with it is that I think of, if that was me, you have to not only be able to, it's not like he's just going in there and he's just doing, conducting the orchestra or whatever.
He's writing.
He has to write the songs, and not only write the songs, but he has to write strong audio cues for main characters, themes.
Yes.
All these other things. I know that, from a Jurassic World standpoint, it'll have touches of John Williams's work to kind of signify that you're in that Jurassic Park world. Mm-hmm. But he still had to do a ton of original work for that, and then do it on Tomorrowland.
I think he's probably seen the films, all these films, as many times as the editor.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, just constantly going back and forth and back and forth.
Working back. Okay, let's try this musical composition. Constantly. And that, to me, is fascinating in a way to have. It's a different kind of passion where we look at it, as the arts and animation, and we see it so visually, where he is seeing it visually, but seeing it through his ears, if that makes sense.
Seeing it through his ears.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to see it and then sense what type of audio is going to complement that section well enough. And
he's like the mustard to the ketchup.
You heard it here first. Michael Giacchino is the mustard to the ketchup.
Yeah, well, to the directors, the ketchup, and the composers, the mustard to make everything, go together.
That's an interesting
but
one.
You get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I love it, though. So, I think that's something that, obviously, with the article and what you're working on for writing up the post, it just blew my mind when I was seeing, kind of what you're putting together, and just made me really think about it a little bit more. Interestingly, on the forum as well, there are some discussions as far as Tomorrowland and the composition for that. And there is a mention that at points during the recording session, that some of the hits or attacks of the music were recorded forward, but then played backwards. So actually the sheet music was written front to back, but they played the sheet music back to front. So they played it the opposite direction. So that way when it was recorded, they could then flip it around and play it the other way. So they recorded it backwards, but it plays how it was written forwards, if that makes sense.
It's very confusing, but I understand because we've talked about this.
Yes. So it's
it's a new style, I feel like.
Yeah, some of those kind of things have been done, as far as cymbal hits and all those kind of things. I've heard that before, and it's really unique when you hear it. So I can't wait till we can see Tomorrowland to hear if some of those moments of the reverse attacks and those types of things are in there, to hear just kind of the kookiness and the extra layers of wildness that it can add by flipping it on its head. So Michael Giacchino.
Yeah.
He's obviously, he's had this crazy lifestyle of fast-paced action forever with doing Lost and many other movies, Star Trek.
He's no stranger to Pixar, so.
Right, obviously many Pixar films, but it just makes me think how fast his huge catalog is continuing to grow. Whereas, some composers, it's they do a film every couple of years and they spend their time on that one. It's just amazing how he can put out such high quality work at such a fast pace.
Right.
It just blows my mind. And looks like, I mean, and obviously, you know, on the outside, we don't really know what's fully going on and everything, but always looks like he's having a blast.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, just from the pictures that we saw from the Tomorrowland premiere, he just looked like he's probably relaxing now, but
taking a breath, yeah.
But it's just like, wow, he just looks like just a carefree kind of guy. He just has like a musical mind.
Yep. I will tell you that, you know, we've been to the studio, to Pixar Studios. One of the things that my goal is to eventually be at a recording session.
In the Warner Brothers lot?
Wherever we want to go.
Yep.
I want to be in a recording session and see how that goes. I want to be there when, like, I would love to, you know, you always talk about being a fly on the wall on like a story session.
Oh, yes.
I want to be on a fly on the wall when like the director's there, like when Pete Docter's there and he picked up the bass and started playing some bass for Inside Out, and then maybe giving some story cues as far as like how things are going to describe how the music was formulated and everything. Like, I want to see all that.
It would be amazing to kind of film like 10 minutes of it, the whole process of getting the musicians in there and just seeing everything. I know we've seen kind of snippets and stuff.
Sure, yeah, they've had some special features on the DVDs and such.
But it would be cool to see like just a longer, like a mini documentary kind of thing.
I would love, just a straight documentary on it. I want at least a half hour. I don't even want 10 minutes. I want at least a half hour.
We should make this happen. A feature film, documentary style, of how a film goes from conception all the way. It'll be like Boyhood for animation.
This may have been done. I don't know.
But it'll be like Boyhood for animation because, you know, that took like 10, 12 years.
Right. I hope it doesn't take 12 years to make this.
Well, no, but it will, because you have to start with the story, and you know it takes it could take 4 to 8 years for the film to go.
Right. Yeah. You never know.
Live. I think that would be amazing.
That's true. They should do just a straight documentary as far as like the filmmaking process.
But be it long.
But you need to follow multiple films.
Yeah.
I want to see it follow multiple films because I think that could make it interesting. All right. Well, we'll hash this out.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll hash this out. So before we get to the meat of this, you have been looking at the back of my little quick notes sheet here.
No, I haven't.
Well, no, you have. It's been in your purview, but you didn't know that this is your quiz.
Oh, great!
This is our now put Julie on the spot quiz section, and I came up with some pretty juicy questions. I think there's a couple in here that are gonna.
My heart rate is elevated.
That are gonna stump you, and just like last time. Even if you know the answer right away, leave a couple seconds so people listening can think about it as well.
Okay.
Okay? So we have 5 questions.
Oh, great.
5 questions about Pixar.
Okay.
What year did Steve Jobs buy Pixar from George Lucas?
Oh. 86?
Of course.
Yeah!
All right. Pixar's first short film was titled...
Andre and Wally B.
Of course, yes, of course. You're getting those right off the bat there. I love it.
Which premiered at SIGGRAPH.
Yeah, yes, it did. All right. This one, I had to think pretty deeply about this, and I'll give you a hint because it is tricky. Okay? What was the first Pixar short, to feature characters from a Pixar feature film?
The first short, is it a DVD one?
Yes.
Mike's New Car?
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you know that one?
Well, because I just went in sequential order of the.
Okay, I love
films.
it. All right, that's a good. I thought that was gonna stump you a little bit. All right, I'm gonna go.
Followed by Jack's Attack, I think.
Oh boy, here we go. All right, so this one's a little easier. I figured after that last one that I thought I was going to stump you on, I had to back it off a little.
Oh.
What does WALL-E stand for?
Waste. Oh. I forgot of this one. Yes, I really did.
This is the one I thought was going to be easier.
I know, I forgot.
Waste allocation load lifter earth class.
Earth class. I kind of knew it.
All right.
I think it's the allocator thing that threw me off.
All right. What was the first Pixar film to receive a PG rating?
Incredibles?
Yes.
Yeah!
Ding, 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 ding. All right.
I didn't do too bad.
No, absolutely not. And there were some good ones in there.
Yeah.
There was some good juiciness. I like it. So,
gosh, that seriously gets me so on edge. And you know when you're on edge, you just become like your mind is frazzled and you're not thinking clearly.
It's definitely harder to come up with things when you're put on the spot.
I would not do good on a game show.
I know. It's so much easier from the couch where you feel like, you can spout off the answers. But yeah, if I was sitting there and Alex Trebek was asking me a question, I would totally be like...
Unless it was like Double Dare circa like 1988 Nickelodeon.
Double Dare, deep cut.
Yeah, I would have rocked on that game show.
Well, it was kind of not hard.
No, it was hard.
And a lot of it was obstacle course, getting slimed.
YouTube it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, Double Dare with Mark Summers, who hosted the other show we watched with Mark Summers on Food Network.
Oh, yeah, Unwrapped.
There you go.
It's a great show.
We're all off topic. All right, so let's get into the main focus of this episode.
Yes.
So, again, like I mentioned, John Lasseter was doing a talk about the new audience. So, moviegoing in a connected world was his discussion his topic that he was talking about. And one of our good friends and listeners of the site and the podcast was there in attendance and luckily sent us a recording of the event. So we're obviously extremely excited to be able to pass this along to other people that weren't able to be in the event in California. I believe was it in Beverly Hills?
I think so.
I think it was in Beverly Hills. But yeah, so what we're going to save most of our comments till after so you can listen to it. But give us one quick thing because you're again working on another post and you're working on a post about this.
Yes.
So what's one thing about it that caught your ear the most and, something that you want people to know going in before they listen to it?
Okay, there's two things that I really...
Nope, just one.
I know, but there's two things that I really did take away from it. But the one thing that I want... that I would like everyone to really listen to because I found it to be eye-opening is knowing the fundamentals, knowing the basics.
Of your craft.
Of your craft, yes.
Whatever it may be, but specifically he's talking about obviously, filmmaking in a connected world. So, yes. But he's talking about you can get all caught up in all this technology, all these crazy things, like you talked about, like the software. And all these, what type of software should I be learning? And he's saying, don't get overwhelmed with all the technology and all these other things.
Yeah, because technology is constantly changing. I mean, my God, last year the 6 Plus didn't exist, and now it exists,
Right.
It's constantly evolving. The freaking Apple Watch, it's constantly evolving. But know the fundamentals.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
And I won't say anything because the way he describes it is very eye-opening.
Okay.
I really liked that part. So.
Great. All right. Well, let's go ahead and listen to John Lasseter talk about the new audience, moviegoing in a connected world. Enjoy.
Amazing what technology can do to the cinematic storytelling. When I went to film school, at that time you would go to film school for two reasons. One, to get with great teachers and fellow geeks, nerds, people that you didn't really have when you were in high school with each other, but you got there and you were the like kind. You were a tribe, and you could learn from each other as well as the teachers. And the second reason you went was to get access to equipment. Seriously. Now, like we've been seeing, your iPhone, your computer is a movie studio and a distribution outlet. And it's so exciting. But what's great about film is that it constantly reinvents itself. As Henry showed us, it started as a sheer novelty of kind of images moving on the screen and stuff like that. People were like, And then it went, and every step of the way as a new technology started being added. Sound. color, what happens is the film grammar of the storytelling evolves and changes as well. The technology goes directly with the evolution of the storytelling. The way films kind of look, it started with, if you've seen the in museums and the new Academy Museum will have them, but the old 35 millimeter motion picture cameras, and then when they got into color with the 3-strip Technicolor, where 3 strips of 35 millimeter were going through one camera. These things weighed hundreds of pounds, and they had to be on dollies and cranes and all like that. That was the film grammar of the day. Because of the limitations of the technology that the films were being shot, that set up what we kind of learned as film grammar. And then as it came on to the lighter cameras, of handheld cameras, of steady cams, of on and on and on. Even all the way down to now, we've been studying, trying to figure out how to do in the computer. There's a unique thing to a GoPro. There's a unique thing to an iPhone and the way things are shot and the way it's held. And it just gives it a vibrancy that you've never been able to have before. And I believe that new film grammar is going to be coming from these things. The same goes for editing. I remember when MTV first came out, it introduced an unbelievable style of editing that had never been done before, the quick cuts and so on, because it was made for television, not made for the big screen, so you can get by with really, really fast cuts. Well, it made its way to the big screen. It fundamentally changed the way films are shot. If you look at great, like, car chases, say, and one of the most famous is Bullet. I mean, in comparison to some of the new stuff now, it's like, oh my God! It's so fast. It's like, it evolves, it changes, and it's in great part, because of the technology. In my own field, in animation, a seminal film, the history of animation is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Walt Disney's first feature-length film. People thought Walt was insane. What? You mean you would actually... People aren't going to sit still for a feature-length cartoon. Are you nuts? But Walt was a visionary. Walt saw beyond, what people were used to. They were used to the short cartoon. And it's interesting how people, the general public, cannot see beyond what they're used to. There's a famous statement that Henry Ford says, that before the Model T, if you ask people what they want, they would say a faster horse. My own partner at Pixar for 25 years, Steve Jobs, because he never liked market research, never did market research for anything. He said it's not the audience's job to tell us what they want in the future. It's for us to tell them what they want in the future. If you use technology correctly, you can change opinions overnight. There's a great statement I love. It's that you only get one chance to make a first impression. And first impressions are nearly impossible to get people off of if they have a wrong impression. I remember when I first saw computer animation. It wasn't being used for much at the time. It was really geometric, really sterile cold, but I was blown away by it. Not by what I was seeing, but the potential I saw in it. That it was true three-dimensionality with the control that we had in hand-drawn animation. There had been stop-motion animation for years, but it was all straight-ahead animation. It didn't quite have the same life that a classic hand-drawn Disney animated film had. I saw the potential in computer animation. And it was like, this is great! This is great! Everybody, can you see this? And everybody's going like, well, it's like, it's too sterile. No, I don't like it, And I'm like, and I realized they were judging from what exactly they were seeing. And, people really always push back, saying it's too cold, too sterile. In the early days of computer graphics, it found its way into special effects. But, if you remember, in the early days, they only used computer graphics for showing a computer readout the inside of a computer or something that was meant to be computer generated. But there was some people who didn't understand the medium and thought it could do everything it could. There was this company that tried and sold Disney when they were making a movie called Something Wicked This Way Comes. They had worked on Tron, did some effects. They had a very charismatic kind of effects guy that convinced them that they could create this magical circus that would erect itself. This evil circus comes to town. And so Disney bought in on it, and they worked for a very long time. I had a very dear friend working on it. And it was way beyond what the computer could do at that time. When it came, when they finished the sequence and it was cut in, I remember seeing this. I got to see the rough cut of it. It was like, beautifully shot, period film going up to the thing. All of a sudden, it's like, what is this? It felt like spaceships were landing or something. It was so cold and sterile and had no reality to it at all. And they end up cutting the entire sequence out of the film. It's on, somewhere buried, in the earth somewhere. It did not make it in the final film. That set back computer graphics in the effects world years. Because everybody remembered that experience and it wasn't there. It was because people didn't understand what the technology could do. About 6 years after that, I was working at Lucasfilm Computer Division. And Dennis Mirren, the brilliant Dennis Mirren, effects director at Island, came over to me. And he said, we have this effect in a film called Young Sherlock Holmes. Steven Spielberg produced, Barry Levinson directing. We don't know how to do it. I'm thinking computer graphics. And it was a very old stained glass window in English church where a priest gets shot with a dart, starts hallucinating, and a stained glass knight jumps out, made of glass, jumps out of the window and menaces him down the center aisle of the church, causes him to get scared so much he runs out and gets run over by a carriage. He put the fear in God, and the fear in him so much that he would run, and eventually to his death. It was only 6 shots. We said, let's try it. And it was some of the hardest things we've ever did. But I'll never forget when it came out, the effects industry, people from all over the world had no idea how it was done. But it worked. It fit in there. It was nominated for an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, and I'll never forget Siskel and Ebert back then, where they got to choose their Oscars. Remember they used to do that back then? And Gene Siskel sat there and was like, I have no idea how they did that, but that is amazing. And Roger goes, I know how they did it. I'll tell you. He goes, I want to know. It was like really funny. But we were so excited. It was like really focusing on understanding the technology and pushing it to places that we couldn't. But the goal was to make it so invisible, the technology invisible. When we became Pixar in 1986, we started working towards our first feature film. I remembered all those projects. And I was blessed by, number one, loving the medium of computer animation. Just so interested in it. And working with the people who basically invented much of computer animation. And we were pushing it all along. So we really understood what the computer could and could not do. And so at that time, when we rendered things, everything kind of looked plasticky. I mean, we all know that because of the Monday Night Football and ABC News and all the flying logos that was going around. And so we started thinking about a subject matter that lent itself to the medium at that time. Everything looks like plastic, so what if the characters were made of plastic? What if they were toys? And it was one of the reasons why we kind of leaned into toys becoming alive as a subject for our very first film, feature film, Toy Story. And if you watch it to this day, if you really know CG, you look at it, the people are weird. The humans are always the weirdest, the hardest to create. And back then it was really impossible. But the story was not about them. We had feet and hands, and that was about occasional faces. It was about the toys that lent themselves to the medium at that time. And we chose toys that really kind of worked for that. And in fact, it was better in CG than any other medium we could have done. Because we could make Buzz Lightyear feel like he's made of plastic and ball and socket joints, and we had screws and scratches and decals and all this stuff that you could not have done in any other medium. And so when it came out, our main focus was not the technology. What I was scared about was that people would be like, oh, it's the first computer animated feature film. And we made sure that Disney and all around the world, that you don't sell it as the first CG film. You sell it as a really great motion picture, because that's how we made it. We really focused on the story and hiding the technology. And it came out, and people loved it. And you watch it today, and it's just as entertaining as the day it came out. It's, by the way, in November, it'll be 20 years old. So it makes a lot of really So if you do it right the first time, like I said, you have only one chance to make a first impression. Unlike the Something Wicked This Way Comes experience, it took years before someone was willing to try CG and effects again. Toy Story was the #1 film of that year, 1995, that came out. It was a huge hit. And everybody started looking at this as a viable filmmaking medium. Overnight, the opinion changed. Because the technology was used in the right way, telling the right story. We were trying to guess, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary, we were trying to figure out how many CG animated feature films have been made and released in the world today, and we were thinking it had been over 100 or something. 255 in 20 years. That blew us away, too. Alfred Hitchcock is one of my favorite filmmakers, and one of the reasons why I've studied and admired his films is that guy used new technology in incredible ways. But it was completely invisible in everything he made. Completely invisible. But you study the film and you realize there's no way he could have made that film, that shot, without that technology. But he didn't want you to notice it. He did not want you to notice it. When we focus on entertaining people, in new ways, and if you focus on the technology too much, you get caught up. I tell you, technology is so much fun, and it's so sexy, and so you get caught up into it. But there's a side to it that you can't forget, that it's not the technology that entertains people. It's what you do with the technology. And it's really important, I believe, to make the technology invisible. but haven't really pushed to do something new. And so people just look and go, wow, what's that? That's amazing. And that's when you really, I think, make real breakthroughs. If you really love a technology, if you really, 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 really love a technology, then dig into it. Learn as much as you can. It's fun. I mean, that's what I did with CG. I mean, I was trained by these great Disney artists. I drew, and it was all about story, character drawing, all that stuff. But when I got into computer graphics, I was like, oh my God, this is so much fun. And I wanted to learn as much as I could, you know. I didn't feel like I couldn't program, but I wanted to understand, wait, how does particle systems work? How did the renderer work? How did, all this stuff? Because then I would start, the more you dig into the technology, the more you learn it, you are going to get ideas that you would have never thought of without knowing your technology. And start thinking about things, you know? The kind of shots you can get from an iPhone that you cannot get with any other camera. Use it. GoPros. Use it. You know? Be inspired by it. Try things. You know? It's digital. Get another memory card, for God's sake. You know? And it's like, you will start creating ideas that just start lending itself to this thing and start looking new. When you start doing something that's really, truly new, you will hear this. It's not going to work. You will hear that. It's not going to work. Walt Disney heard it. I heard it with CG. People are going to sit still for it. It's so cold. Computer animation is so cold. Really? No, I don't think so. You know, you think about it, it's true for color, sound, feature-length animation, CG. I mean, it's like the first, you know, we're first feature film shot on an iPhone. That's not going to work. Yeah, it's going to work. It's going to be awesome. First feature film shot with a GoPro. It's going to be awesome. In the hands of the right people. And the reason why they say this is because it's not what people are used to. You know, before the Model T, you ask people what they want. They're going to want a faster horse. It's not what they're used to. I remember sitting with Steve, and he was sitting there, and he would like look off and wax poetically sometimes, just think. It was so fun to hear what he would say. And he goes, you know what? Everybody has a cell phone. But everybody I know hates their cell phone. But we all have them. Because I want to make a phone that people love. And that was the origins of the iPhone. It didn't come from market testing or anything like that. It just came from the same, I want to make something people love. Can you imagine life without this now? I mean, my God. When I started working with CG, you know, I could not wait for the tools to become commonplace. In the early days when it was, you know, when SIGGRAPH was the only place that you could go and see computer graphics, it was always fun. And everybody would cheer for, you know, reflective, clear balls floating over a checkerboard and stuff. You know, and it was in a world where it was interesting because it was a world where all of the art and the CG was being created by the guys who were writing the program. There was no such thing as off-the-shelf software. There was no tools available. People were writing their software and then creating it. And they were kind of the artistic guys within the computer world. And they would, and they were just showing off the technology. And I kept thinking to myself, it's like, yeah, but they're really ugly. It's like boring. You know, let's entertain people. And I couldn't wait because I always viewed the technology as simply a tool. Can you imagine the guy who invented the pencil and all of the things that invention has brought to the world? And that's what I was feeling like with CG. I couldn't wait to get it just in the hands of everybody, to see what they would do. And it's that, you know, we've heard the term disruptors a lot, right, lately. I loved when Steve went back to Apple, the first ad, before he had any products out. He just changed their whole advertising in the Think Different campaign. And I think it was one of the most brilliant advertising campaigns because it was not about a product. It was about a way of thinking and seeing and feeling. Steve came to me privately when he was, they had just bought Next, his company Next Appleton. And they invited him, they wanted him to come back to be interim CEO. And he asked my permission. I was so touched, right? Because Pixar was one of his babies, and he spent a lot of time with us. And he went there, and we were talking about it. And he said simply, I asked him, do you want to go? Do you want to do this? And he said, yeah. He said, I think the world would be a better place with Apple in it. And he was feeling at the time that it may not survive. Can you imagine a world without Apple in it and the products that they brought? You know, and excuse me for any PC users out there. I'll admit I'm really biased. But you know, the medium in which we use is really just simply tools for expressing your art. Your goal as a filmmaker is to entertain. You know? And to entertain people is about story. It's about characters. It's about connecting with that audience. It's making that connection where you really deeply entertain an audience. But it's not just an art form that we're in. It's a business. And this is a film business. Entertaining stuff simply just does better. It does better. You know, if you can make people laugh and cry and feel things with a film you make, you will be successful. No matter what medium you create it in, no matter any way you distribute it, it doesn't matter. It all comes down to your knowledge skills. What makes a good story? How can I tell it properly? You know, people get so excited about new technologies. You know, I've had the question so many times with young people. It's like, you know, you could go, what software should I use? Like that. And I go, you know what? In your lifetime, the software and the technology would change so drastically, it doesn't matter. What matters is, when you're young and you get excited about, is learn the fundamentals. It sounds so boring to people, to young people, when they can make a movie so quickly and release it to the world and get millions of likes. It's so boring. I know how to do that. Trust me, you don't. There's the fundamentals of good storytelling, the fundamentals of film grammar. Even though it's made with old digital cameras and stuff like that, learn it. Learn the fundamentals of animation. Learn the fundamentals of physics and things like that, of basic color, basic design. The more you get into this is a foundation of the building, you know, of your career. The more that you understand the fundamentals, then as you get into new technology, you'll know exactly what to do with it. And your work will not be about the technology. It'll be about connecting and entertaining people. And it doesn't matter the length of your film. 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 22 minutes, feature length. It needs a story. It needs a beginning, a middle, and an end. It needs to really deeply connect with people. But there is big differences between storytelling at 30 seconds or a feature film. Big differences. when we went from short films. We did a series of short films in the beginning of Pixar. And we did television commercials. And then we were thinking the next step for us would be to do like a Christmas special. And so we thought about, that this is what the next step that we need to do. But really it was like, we made a deal with Disney and Steve and Disney at the time, and we just threw us into the deep end, and we were developing a feature film. It was amazing what we didn't know. But I went back to my traditional training that I had learned from my mentors, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, the great Disney animators that were still working at the studio when I started there. And the fundamentals of animation that they kept talking about. Because I would go to them, my drawing was okay, it wasn't great. And I would go to them for help with the scene we're working on. And Ollie Johnston would take and flip this big stack of things and look at it. And he would turn to me, and I was expecting something about arcs and lines and silhouette value and all that stuff. And he would turn and he goes, "John, what's the character thinking?" And it was amazing to me that just that simple statement, it was like, it was not about the drawing. It was never about the drawing to them. It was about that character and what it's thinking. And through pure movement, they taught me to bring that character to life and give it an emotion, a personality, a uniqueness. And it was done through just pure motion. And so when I started working with a computer, I just brought that technology with me. And as we started developing the story, it was always about emotion. It was always about emotion from the day one with Toy Story. It's about emotion, making you feel. And that's what, I've admired Walt Disney so much my whole life. And part of it is because he entertained people like no other person in history has ever done. The way that he makes you feel when you watch his movies, the way he makes you feel, the way he makes you feel when you go through that tunnel under the train station at Disneyland and you're transported, the way he makes you feel. It's about emotion, and that connection. Walt always said for every laugh there should be a tear. Felt like that core emotion. That became the hallmark of what we tried to do at Pixar, to do with a new technology. So as you move forward and you start thinking about from going to viral, videos you want to grow viral on the internet and small little things, to start moving up into making short films and making feature-length films, or whatever length you want to do, or series for Netflix, or whatever. It's about this. It's about entertaining people and connecting with people. Educate yourself. I cannot stress enough. Educate yourself. It's so fun to try. There's no reason not to try anymore, right? There was a lot of excuses before when you didn't have access to the equipment. Those excuses are gone. Get out there and do it. But understand that you can always get better. And understand there's always something to learn. Read as many books as you can. Still, that's what we did. We just devoured ourselves with every storytelling book. We went to seminars like crazy. Every seminar we could get. And I think the biggest thing for us is that we studied films. We watched films religiously. With Toy Story, it was a buddy picture. We watched every buddy picture we could find and analyzed it. Good ones, and it's very important to watch bad ones, too. No, seriously, it's very important. You watch a bunch of good ones and watch a few bad ones, and pretty soon you'll start seeing, this one, Defiant Ones did this. I'm not going to say it. These other films did that. And that's why it doesn't quite work. Interesting. Okay. And you start understanding what they did, and they do more and more. And don't copy things. It's about understanding and learning. Very, very, very important. Do not work in a vacuum. Do not work in a vacuum. right? You may be the filmmaker and doing something on your own, but you have to surround yourself with trusted people. You have to, you get so immersed in your work. You will. Everybody does. You get so immersed in your work. I guarantee you will not be able to see the forest from the trees. Frankly, you'll be studying the pine needles and worrying about them. And you need somebody to help you back up and take a look at the forest and see where things are working or not working. And you need to surround yourself with people whose judgment you trust. And they can be brutally honest with you. And you have to be able to, look, showing as an artist, showing unfinished work to people is really difficult. It is really hard. It always is hard. It always will be hard. It never gets any easier. But you have to do it. Anderson, my partner creative partner at Pixar, has this fantastic phrase that we use all the time. Be wrong as fast as you can. Trust me. When you go from an outline to a treatment, your first treatment sucks. And you do revisions and talk to people like that. You get something working really great. Go to your first draft of the script. It sucks. You do it a bunch of times. And for us, we go with the story reels. The first story reel sucks. But the longer you go, I'm not quite ready yet. Wait, give me a little more time. Give me a little more time like that. It's not going to help the problem. Right? You're just going to be polishing. You're not going to be seeing where it's not working. Get it up there. Throw it up there as fast as you can. Talk about it. Tear it back down. Put it back up there. Keep doing that. Surround yourself with really people that you trust. Be thirsty for knowledge. Be thirsty for knowledge. It will always make your work better. The market is changing really, 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 really quickly. And really, who knows what business will look like 10 years from now? But I know one thing for sure. That if you create characters people connect with, and tell stories that deeply entertain and move them, the audience will come. They'll come no matter how you show it. And they'll keep coming back. In this business, remember this simple thing, I believe truly. Success breeds autonomy. The more that you can do this and show time and time and time again that you can deeply entertain people, you will be able to keep making your art and people will leave you alone. Trust me, they do. Success breeds autonomy. And so, really, if you make great work, you can set the terms too of like what you want to be doing. So stuff that really moves and excites you. So be inspired by amazing new technology. Be inspired by all the stuff the speakers talked about like this. But make sure that you're entertaining people. Make sure you understand the fundamentals of storytelling and film grammar and animation or whatever. Design, color. Understand those. Because that is what you will use with the new tools to create things that really deeply entertain people. Thank you very much.
All right, so there is the presentation. Again, thank you so much to our good friend. So thank you. As far as some things to take away, I love the fact that, when we were going in, I think the point that you brought up summarized it as best as it could be, because the overarching theme is, we're in a connected world. There's technology all over the place, but you still got to know the basics. You still got to connect with the heart of the story. And as long as you entertain people, you're going to be able to continue to make your movies, just like you said at the end of it there. Mm-hmm. So the one thing that I took away from it, and then I want you to kind of go with it, because I know you have a couple extra ones on top of what I did, is just one thing that I really connected with, and I loved it, was when he talks about Steve Jobs and how he said that he didn't do market research.
Yes.
Because that's something that I've read in other books about Steve Jobs, and it's something that I've always completely believed in. Obviously, I think that there is a place for market research, 100%. You know, Pixar does test screenings on their movies. They have to get a sense for how the audience is receiving this because it's going to be presented to audiences and they're going to watch it. Under that same token, though, I do love the fact that Steve Jobs kind of had the gall to basically just say, you know what? People don't really truly know what they want because their minds are not thinking all the time about what they could have. They're so caught up in what the world is today that I want to make things for people that they don't even know exist yet. And if I spent my time focusing on what people want today, I'm only going to make evolutionary changes. They came out with the iPod, changed everything for music. It changed the way that media is delivered with the iTunes store. And then the iPad, it was a just complete dead industry. People are like, oh, tablets are dead. Nobody's ever going to use them. They come out with it. People are laughing at the name. And now everybody's like, iPad? I got to have an iPad. And, you know, every manufacturer is trying to do some version or iteration of it. And it's these life-changing things that you know, big, if you dare big, it can happen. You know, John Lasseter talked about that with Toy Story. People are like, you can't do this. It looks like garbage. Like it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
But he just kept plowing forward with it. And then as soon as it came out, people overnight are, you know, thinking it's a success. I love it. I want to do it. So that was, I always love that motivational part of John's speeches where he brings those elements in to kind of tug at your heartstrings. And to me, that's not even at my heartstrings, that's at my motivation strings.
Yeah.
Because it always makes me want to be like, ooh, what can I think of? What's my next big thing?
Right.
So, all right. So what are some of the extra moments in there that, you know, really resonated with you?
Well, this is kind of off topic, but hearing it again, you know, you think about when he says you have to read books. You have to learn everything you can. Dive, to get the knowledge. That's something that I know you do on everything.
I try.
You really try. I mean, when
Right.
it comes to like books, you are, you know, you're like, I've got to learn it. So let's get all the books about it and figure it out. So that's something that I was just kind of like, oh, wow, you know, you do that. You know, I do a little bit. I kind of see if I can figure it out on my own first, which probably isn't the best idea on most things.
No, but that's where, again, I have the analysis paralysis side of things. And anybody listening, I don't know if you're kind of like this too. So who do you associate with more? So on my side of it, I spend so much time researching and trying to get everything set up so that way it can be perfect when it's done. Whereas you're like, okay, I've got the basics. I need to start rolling here. So that way I can start producing. Right. So again, just like everything else with the opposites kind of coming together, that's where we make a good team, especially with the site, because I'm trying to perfect it and you're like, no, we need to get the post out.
Yeah. Well,
you know, so
perfect it as it goes, and I just
right. And there's a place for both.
Yeah, and I always when I see something and when I think of something, I'm like, I can do it. Where you're like, I have to figure out if I can do it. And I see things as like, no, I can do it.
Exactly. And that's, again, like I said, that's the difference. So what else struck you from this?
So another thing that I really took away from it is when he said that you need to surround yourself with trusted people. People that you can be, like, who can be brutally honest to you. And, you know, the example he gave is, you know, when you can't see the forest from the trees, that you're only going to see the pine needles. Right, yeah. You need, you know, someone to, you know, stand back to see the forest for you and to let you know what's, you know, working and what's not. It's probably very similar to, you know, things that happen at Pixar every day.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're all working on these tiny little segments. And that's where the director obviously comes in, because they need to keep that full vision while everyone else is doing their macro little parts that all have to then come together and formulate the movie that, you know, it hits theaters and they hope that the audiences are going to love.
Right. And he said a quote or a phrase from Andrew Stanton, and it's something that I haven't heard from him before, and he's one of our favorite directors, and it is, be wrong as fast as you can.
You haven't heard that one before?
I haven't heard that
Andrew
one.
Stanton talks about that in his TED Talk.
Maybe I have. Maybe it just...
Yeah, it probably just slipped your mind or whatever.
Maybe it just slipped my mind.
You know what? I bet it just refreshed it in your mind, and it was like, oh yeah, that is good.
Yeah, because you do. And when he talks about that, I don't want to show my work in the dailies, going back to like Pixar and animation. I want to work on it a little bit longer. Well, if something's not working and you're working on it longer, you're just kind of delaying the inevitable. And that's if it's not working, maybe not working on something longer will fix it, but get it to the group. Right. Yeah, and I know that's how I would be. I know I would be the one. I would be the one to like hold it, and not show anything, not say anything, and then it's like, oh, now I got to start all over. Yeah. Instead of just sharing it and being more open at the beginning. And that's hard as artists, and he did talk about that too. And you and I, we feel that way too. Is when someone says something, especially when you're not finished with something. Right. It's almost like, hey, well, I'm not even done with it. Like, give me a couple minutes. I know, but then if they're like. And we both have had the good and negative feedback towards each other's, things. And it's just like, gosh, you feel like dejected, just inside, crumbling, but wait a second, this is my work. But then when you hear it, it kind of, it's good to hear. Absolutely. And I think the quote that you had mentioned from Andrew Stanton about being wrong as fast as you can is a perfect way to put a capper on the John Lasseter discussion. So again, we certainly hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again to our friend who enabled us to have this to bring to everybody. So that's so fantastic. And I think that about wraps up episode 38 of the Pixar Post Podcast. So as we always like to ask, though, if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to rate us on iTunes. Let us know your thoughts by sending us an email at info@pixarpost. Leave us a voicemail, whatever works best for you, but we want to hear from you and your thoughts about what you enjoyed from John Lasseter's discussion about the future of filmmaking. Yeah. So, again, wrapping up episode 38 of the Pixar Post Podcast, I'm TJ. And I'm Julie. And be sure to stay tuned to PixarPost.com all week for the latest Pixar news. Bye-bye.